he is, our District Governor, Rick Rickard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It's been a great experience to make this travel with all of you. So I'm very happy to be here today. When you become district governor and after the training's all over and you get to finally go out and do what you love, visit all the clubs, Rotary told us that they figured that they have about $150,000 into each and every one of us. That's a lot of money, but along with the $150,000 comes something that only 525 people in this world have. Socks. I don't think it cost quite that much for the socks, but they were a nice touch. I had the opportunity to go to Hamburg, Germany in June. What an experience that was. RI convention, 26,000 people, Rotarians, all in one spot. Yeah, we crashed the internet. The whole thing went down for a couple of hours, but they got it back up and running real soon. Anyway, when I was there was, Rotary has speakers, and then they have speakers, and there was this young man, and he was from Australia, and he's a Rotaractor. And he got up in front of all these people and gave this little speech on what it is that Rotarians do in the world. And he came up with the term do-goodery. So that's what all of us Rotarians in the whole world do, is we do goodery. He actually, it was taped, and if you look on YouTube under do-goodery, you can listen to his speech. He was absolutely dynamic, one of the best speakers I've ever heard. The unfortunate part was the speaker that had to follow him. He was the president of Toastmasters. And I hate to, he kind of blew her out of the water, but it was very interesting. What came out of the international conference, we got Connect the World, that's what Rotary is about. You know, and your foundation giving in this club is absolutely outstanding. You set the pace for the district when it comes to giving the RI Foundation. And it's part of connecting the world. And you do that by giving money so that it comes back to other people that don't have so much money that can do projects around the world. I got a couple of things in my mail this past week. One of them was on a project in Ethiopia. Gondar University, and it had to do with women's loan program that was very successful. And so the person in our district that put this project together got some statements back from the ladies that participated. And the first one right out of the gate just hit home because it's human trafficking. This woman was trafficking herself to support her family. She couldn't afford not to. They couldn't eat. She didn't have a husband. She had no way of supporting him. So that's what she was doing. Through this program of the microloan program, she was able to stop that lifestyle, and she can now support her family. It's things like that is how we connect the world. Out of Haiti this week, I got pictures of a chicken production operation that we helped finance at this club. We actually put money towards that, and it's finally come up and is running. And the Haitians, I am so proud of them, I can't tell you. They actually did this with very little supervision. They did it by themselves. And they got chickens, and there's a mortality rate with these chickens, and so they didn't want to lose any chickens out of the 1,000 that they ordered, so they decided they were going to sleep with these chickens, and they did. They only lost 14 chicks out of 1,000 chicks. So they were really on board to get this done. But the pictures coming back of them, so proud of the fact that they made 70 cents on every chicken that they sold. They sold 600 chickens. And they made 70 cents out of it. I mean, to us, that doesn't mean much, but to a Haitian, that is profit. That means a lot. So we've contacted them, and we're going to ask them to raise the price on the chickens a little bit because they can do it. They also had 400 laying hens, and they started producing. The last picture I got, they had about 20 cases of eggs that they'd already harvested. That's connecting the world, people. That's what we do here, and that's what you do when you give to the Rotary Foundation, is it goes to projects like that. 3 words that the RI president said to us. This was in San Diego in January. Change, adapt now. Boy, have we come into our own on that one. He wasn't talking about everything at once or do everything. I'll give you an example. He was talking about club structure a lot. Don't be afraid to step out of the box. I mean, I've been coming to this Rotary Club for 36 years. I've been sitting out here, and every week my friends and I, we solve the world's problems. And I'm not changing, ever. That's just the way I'm comfortable, though. But there's a lot of people that can't make good Rotarians that don't have that opportunity to attend a luncheon or a breakfast meeting. So what we're seeing in our district a lot more is people stepping outside that box and starting clubs that are a little bit unique. One of my favorite ones I like to use as an example is a club from Grand Forks. There are 22 women in the club, 2 men. They have no structure. They have a president and a secretary-treasurer. They have no board of directors. They call themselves the No Pressure Club. They are happy hour. You go for drinks and hors d'oeuvres. They meet twice a month. They decide on a project that they're going to do, and it may be months down the road, but they decide on a project, they line it up. They never ever choose a project that isn't family inclusive. That's stepping out of the box. Change, adapt now. And we're seeing more and more in that, and it's really great for membership. One that just started up that Linda and I and the rest of us that were at the State Fair on Friday, Bob, veterans. We have our first Rotary Veterans Club. In the world. And we're going to go with that. It was kind of funny because it took them about 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks' time they had enough to not become a satellite club, but they had enough to charter a full-fledged Rotary Club. So here's Buford, pay attention to this, because you got friends in the military. We could use some. We could use a veterans club in Brainerd as a satellite club of this club. Increases membership. So we've done very good in the district as far as stepping out of the box. And so we are changing slowly, and that's okay because there's room for everybody. We don't have to be just because somebody can't make a lunch meeting doesn't mean they can't be a Rotarian. Johns Hopkins University did a study recently where they said that Rotarians put in 40 million hours a year in community service in their communities. And that produces $850 million in economic development around the world. That is huge. And we get recognized by some people that you wouldn't think we'd get a lot of recognition from. Rockstar Bono just did a video not too long ago where he was just asked about Rotary. And he's very much a humanitarian, and he made this statement. He says, no matter where I go in this world to do my work, he says, Rotary's been there first. And he said, Rotary, he says, service above self. 1 million people, awesome. He says, Rotary, I salute you. So we do get, some pats on the back occasionally, and that's one of them. If you look at great news coming about polio, Nigeria, she's done. She's down. It's over. I kind of thought that would be probably the last country that we would eradicate polio from, but I was wrong. They are now polio free. One thing that it's time to share my story. Our eye has been finally caught on to the fact that people like to hear stories, and stories are very entertaining also. So I'm going to tell you my story. I'm going to start out in 1972. I graduated from high school in Sandpoint, Idaho. I was going to get drafted, and I really wasn't real happy about getting drafted. End of the Vietnam War. Wasn't really exactly an exciting time to be going into the military, so I enlisted for the draft. Now, by enlisting for the draft, I got to pick the job I wanted to be trained for. And so I took the longest school I could get, and it was tactical microwave radio repair. 6 weeks, I was sent out to Fort Monmouth, Jersey to go to school. So I go to school out there. 6 weeks into the course of 52 weeks, the war ended, which is a really good thing. But they didn't need anybody else to do that job, and they didn't foresee a school coming up for 3-4 years. So because I had enlisted for that, I had some choices. I could get out of the Army, which I really didn't want to do, or I could stay there at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and I could mop floors. I didn't want to do that either, so I took a new job, crash rescue expert. And I went for training in Fort Rucker, Alabama, got through the training, got shipped off to Germany, where I was going to be for the next 2.5 years, or little over 2 years, I guess it was. And anyway, I lived on the German economy most of the time I was there, not on the post. But the first month or so before I got a chance to find a place to live off post, I was stuck in the billets with another guy, and we became friends, of course, because we're sleeping in the same room. And he was recently married to a girl back in the States, and every night he'd be writing these love letters home, you know, every night. And so one night he looks at me and he says, "Rick, don't you have anybody back home to write to?" And I said, "Well, no, not really." And he says, "Well, would you like to?" And of course, we were having a little bit of, you know, the wet stuff, and finally I said, "Sure, I'll write to her." So he gave me this name and this address, and so I wrote a letter to this girl that I'd never heard of and never met in my life, and she wrote back. So I thought, wow, that's kind of cool, so I wrote her again. She wrote back. Wow. That was 45 years ago. She's sitting right there. So we did end up getting married. I came back to the States once I got out of the service. We got married, and I tried to get a job in the fire department. Couldn't get one. I wasn't a minority, and that's what they were hiring at that time. So I was doing nothing, which, being the person I am, that's not a good thing. I should be doing something. So Susan was working at Dayton's Looking Glass, downtown Minneapolis, and she had a client that owned some dry cleaners. And she says, "Well, we're looking for some help, you know, if your husband liked to apply at the dry..." Well, the only time I'd ever been in a dry cleaners was to drop off my military uniforms. I didn't know anything about it, but I had everything else to do. So I went down and I applied for the job, and I got the job. I didn't know that I was going to be a soil dissolvent engineer for the rest of my life. But it kind of turned out that way. But, you know, and it was, anybody knew Minneapolis back in the mid-70s, and Hennepin Avenue was 6th in Heaven. It wasn't exactly the most, it was bad. Yeah, it was, it had its issues with drugs and prostitution and all that stuff. It was a challenge on a daily basis just to work there. But while I was there, so a couple cool things happened. One day this kid comes in the cleaners. I called him a kid, but he puts his clothes on the counter and he wants to get them dry cleaned. So I look at him, I said, "And what's your name?" And he kind of, in this shy voice, he bends over and he says, "Prince." And I looked at him and I said, "Prince ain't gonna make it." So he does. He tells me his name, Rogers Nelson. I didn't know what that was going to turn into, but we became pretty good friends. So much so is that I was able to do all the cleaning for him, his entourage, the movie Purple Rain. I did all that stuff. It was really exciting, and it definitely put some money into our pockets, as we were just not that married all that long. So it was a very exciting time for us when that was going on, especially the movie Purple Rain, when they were doing the filming, and that was really cool. Anyway, another time we were sitting, it was a Saturday morning, it was 6:30 in the morning, we'd gone to McDonald's, got some McDonald's breakfast, we're sitting in the back of the cleaners, we're having this breakfast, and all of a sudden the door opens at the front of the cleaners, and these two guys come in and they flip the counter up, they're wearing trench coats, and I thought, oh, we're gonna get robbed. And no, in behind them walked Hubert H. Humphrey, the Vice President of the United States. And he came and sat down in the back with us, and he had some breakfast with us, and we talked about the times, and it was a pretty cool thing to happen to a little dry cleaner in downtown Minneapolis. But anyway, after that, after 12 years of working off of that avenue, I was burnt out. The stress level there was very high, and so I retired. I moved to Tofty, Minnesota, up on the North Shore. And I thought I was going to start a dry cleaners up there, because the dry cleaners there had recently went out of business, and I attempted to and got nowhere. And so I was still unemployed again, and it wasn't a real good, pretty situation for me. So I was in the hardware store in Tofty, Minnesota one day, and I looked at the guy behind the counter and I said, "Do you ever hire anybody?" I said, "I could really use a job." And I had my little son in my arms and everything, and he says, "Well, let's have a talk." So he takes me into this office and we sit down. We talked for about an hour and a half, and at the end of the conversation he says to me, "I would like to send you to school." And I said, "Send me to school for what?" He says, "You see that mountain back there?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "I'm going to build a golf course on it." He wanted to send me to school for running a golf course. And I got kind of worried at that point, because I really wanted to own my own business, so I turned him down. But it also forced me to get up off my butt and go look for another dry cleaners someplace else. So I did. So that's how I landed in Brainerd, Minnesota. And I bought this little tiny rundown dry cleaners over on Washington Street. Paid a little bit of nothing for it, and we set up shop, and we were doing some business. And one day, this gentleman walks into the door. In the door, his name was Dale Nathan. Dale Nathan wanted to talk to me about being in the community, and he said, we got to talking about community service, and I said, you know, if I'm in the community and I'm making my living here, I want to give back something to the community. He says, well, have you ever heard of Rotary? And I said, no, I've never heard of Rotary. He says, I'll tell you what. He says, we're a service organization. Come to lunch. I'll buy you lunch and you can check it out. So I said, sure, no problem. So I did. And the first thing I noticed when I walked through the door was service above self. It was on the front of that table when I walked through the door. I was very impressed with that. So I did end up joining Rotary, Brainerd Noon Rotary Club. And I wasn't exactly the best Rotarian when I first joined. I obviously starting a business and getting it up and running. But I did keep my 60% membership. I was able to do that, and I also helped out in a project here and there when I had the opportunity, but I wasn't fully engaged as a Rotarian until a president we had. Her name was, you probably know her name's Lisa Paxton. Lisa Paxton was the president. She'd get up at this podium every Tuesday, and the first thing that would come out of her, what we did is we did a project to Haiti doing bicycles. We packaged them up, we shipped them down, got them down to Fort Lauderdale, got on a boat, gone to Haiti. Well, it had gone so well that we decided to do again. So we did it, packaged all these bicycles up, and once we got them packaged, we didn't have a ride down to Fort Lauderdale. So Lisa would get up here every Tuesday at noon and she'd say, we got bicycles, we need to get them down to Fort Lauderdale so we can get them into Haiti. And she did this for like 2 months. At the end of 2 months, I got mad. I got up from Rotary one Tuesday afternoon, I went home and I started calling people, and I called everybody I could think of. I finally got a hold of a friend that I was in the Army with, and he was working for a company called DDS Warehouse. DDS Warehouse was they shipped worldwide. And so I said, can you get me an interview with the owner? Can I get in to talk to the owner? And he said, sure. So he did. He got me in, and I was able to convince this gentleman that it was in his best interest to come up to Brainerd and take those bicycles down to Fort Lauderdale, and he did. That was the day I drank the Rotary Kool-Aid. And I never slowed down after that. I got onto committees, and then I chaired committees, and then I got on the board of directors, and then I got vice president, and then I became president, and shortly after I got on the grants committee at the district level. And then when I was president, something interesting happened. We had a visioning plan. And a visioning plan is just where you get a group of us together and we map out what direction we want to go into. And we could only have 25 members. So I handpicked 25 people from our club, a very diversified group. Some of them hadn't even been in Rotary 90 days. And got them together to do this visioning plan. And so we drew up this 5-year plan. And back then, and Teresa could relate to this, we'd get together periodically to check on how our progress was. Well, at the end of that 5 years, when we sat down, we had accomplished about 95% of what we set out to do. It was a very successful thing that we did. What also came out of that visioning plan was looking a little farther down the road, because you see, in 10 years, we were going to be 100 years old. And what we decided is that we wanted to have district conference in Brainerd, we wanted to have the signature project, and we wanted the district governor to be from this club. If I hadn't known it was going to be me, I may not have done the visioning plan. Yeah, but and then you know, so now I am district governor, and it is a process. I will tell you that. A couple of years of really a lot of training, and more training, and so now I'm out doing what I love to do. I get to visit with people and spread the Rotary word. So anyway, I've got a couple of things that I didn't tell you about my childhood, and this hits really close to home to me, so I'm going to tell you this. I had a terrible childhood. My childhood was ugly. Every type of abuse you could imagine, mental, physical, suicide in the family, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and it was really, really tough. And all I remember when I was a little kid, and I was 11 years old or so, and I was in my bedroom on a Sunday morning upstairs, and my parents had been out drinking the night before, and they'd come home, And they typically were yelling and screaming and hollering at each other. And I knew if I came down those stairs, I was going to get a beating just because that's what my parents did. It was just the lifestyle that they did. And I just kept thinking to myself that, you know, there's got to be a better way to live. Well, I didn't know at that time, but I was praying because I didn't know anything about God either. But I was, and God was listening. And shortly thereafterwards, He provided me with a friend. And that friend today is still a pastor and has his own church. But he volunteered to come pick me up for church on Sundays. And for whatever reason, because this is way out of my parents' realm, I mean, this just does not happen. They agreed to let me go every Sunday. And so that's how I became a Christian, and by going to church every Sunday with my best friend. If it wasn't for God, I probably wouldn't be standing here today. I'd be dead in some gutter someplace. The rest of my family hasn't fared so well. They've had issues. But my point is that when we witnessed the suicide, or when the suicide happened, to us children, it was devastating. It was so devastating that we slept in one bedroom all together with the lights on for a year. See, there wasn't anybody to talk to. There wasn't anybody beating on our door to help us. And that's what I want to change today. So this comes full circle for me. We have created a PowerPoint presentation that's under the youth column on the district website that deals with youth protection and abuse. If you could show that at a club date and just as an awareness program to spread this, that it is an issue and it needs to be addressed. I will tell you, I know you had ACEs, I was out on the road, but I know you had ACEs here for a program 1 week. There's not too many tests you want to max. This definitely isn't one, and I maxed it. So this is very dear to my heart. Now, taking it one step forward, a couple years ago I was approached at Zone Conference to start a project on human trafficking in 3 districts, and we couldn't get it together. I couldn't get it. Blaine Johnson, last year's governor, couldn't get it together. This man right here, Bob McLean, got it together. And he got everybody to sit down and create a vision and a purpose for what this 3-district venture is going to be on human trafficking and child abuse. The kickoff was actually this past Friday at the state fair. The committee came together. We have Stacy Schaefer from Bismarck Rotary is chairing that for the 3 districts. We're going to create a resource center. There's so many organizations in our communities that are available for counseling, to help you with crisis type situations and that thing, but they're not really well known. I didn't even know about ACEs until Bob told me about it. And so we want to create a resource center so when somebody has an issue, they know where to go to, who to call, and we can give out advice and send them in the right direction for whatever counseling or whatever type of service that they're looking for. That's the first objective. We still are defining what our entire role is going to be, but the districts have made a 3-year commitment, and we needed money. We put up $5,000 each by the district to get this thing off the ground. So it is up and running, and I'm very happy to see that. One of our major speakers at our district conference this year is going to be a girl named Jessica Bartholomew. She's a retired police officer. She runs a nonprofit for abused children, and she is a dynamite speaker and has a fabulous presentation that we will be hearing from her. Anyway, we're not only going to have district conference, President-elect training is going to be at the district conference this year instead of having it in 2 locations, Duluth and Fargo. That hasn't been working all that great for us, so we decided to try a change of venue. After I talked to past district governors, they seem to do pretty well with having it at conference, so we're going to try it. As an incentive, we're going to waive the registration fee into the conference of $75 for every president-elect. You'll also be invited to my governor's dinner on Thursday night, I think it will be, at no charge. And you will be asked to participate in the Grand March into the ballroom on Saturday night. A couple things some things that are happening in the district. We have a peace scholar. We interviewed her in June. We said yes, 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 and yes. And so we should find out in November if she's going to win the scholarship or not. I would foresee She will. She's really an outstanding lady. We were at the state fair on Friday promoting Rotary with the other 3 districts that we're partnering with in the human trafficking initiative. That went well. I did reach out to former group study exchange team leaders and participants. I got yes, 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 and yes. So I'm going to attempt to bring the GSE team back together and put it forth as a district-sponsored event. I also got keeping with the human trafficking thing, vocational training team possibly in Zimbabwe?
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. Okay, Ethiopia. Well, it's in Africa. Okay.
Which is now polio-free.
Which is not polio-free.
No,
No.
all of Africa.
Oh, all of Africa is, yeah. All of Africa is. Oh, so whether that happens or not, my last attempt at doing that vocational training team was the beginning of the year, and it fell through. It happened when the political unrest started again. And I called RI to talk to him about the issue of the political unrest and the VTT. And the very last sentence of the conversation from Rotary International was that, oh, and we had to airlift a vocational training team out of Haiti last week. So kind of put the kibosh on that. So maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. There is a trip to Honduras, medical. It's the 3rd week in March. If you're interested in going, if you've never been on a Rotary International trip, try it. It's quite the experience. And Executive Finance Committee will be meeting on October 25th, 26th in Grand Rapids. And One Rotary Summit will be meeting in Grand Rapids on the 18th and the 19th. So One Rotary Summit's education on just what Rotary is. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making me district governor. I appreciate it. Thanks.